everybody. How are you this morning? Where am I going to put my drink? Alrighty, we'll put it right here. How's everybody this morning? I hope you're all well. We're back for week 9. Believe it or not, week 9. March 4th was the last day. And I'm doing the 1,000 pound challenge where I try to divert my garden scraps, my fruit and veg peels, egg shells, shrimp shells, any of that, coffee grounds, tea bags, leaves, paper rolls, cardboard, grass clippings, vacuum cleaner, the dirt that comes out of your vacuum, my dryer lint, that is, I don't even count that really. Anything like stale cereal, crackers, cork, popsicle sticks, any of that. Anyway, we had a pretty good week, although it was one of those, starts on today. So, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm not getting anything, 8 or 9 ounces here, 8 or 9 ounces there. And my neighbor, Brian, who cuts his grass, during the winter, he only cuts it maybe once a month. I think it's been 5.5, 6 weeks since he cut it. And I thought, oh, I'm just not going to make it. I'm falling behind on my 20 pounds a week average. And my husband is such a hoot. We're sitting out in our front porch and we see Brian walk by with his dog. He's across the street. And we see him very seldom because he takes different routes. And we're out there at different times too. Anyway, Rick yells across, "Hey, Brian." And Brian looks over, yeah, Rick, hey, how you doing? He says, "Hey, did your lawnmower break?" And Brian just started laughing. He said, "No, I've just been lazy." He says, "Okay, we'll get to it." And Brian came across, he said, "That's right, you're doing a challenge." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "What else are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I use cardboard." Oh my goodness, he went on to tell the story that he's cleaning out his garage because he's having renovations done. And he actually hired a company. And that's a big thing here. Well, I think probably across in the world, is that people are going through and they are ridding themselves of all the paper and things that they had in their drawers, and electric bills for years, and your computer, your stock accounts, any of your bank accounts, anything that you don't want somebody else seeing. And they actually have companies now that will come out and they will shred your papers, and they will take that shred off your hands for a price, and then I'm sure they sell it off. So anyway, Brian, so that was, I think, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, got to be Saturday, and I think I only had about 5 or 6 pounds of my own. And Rick came in from getting the mail, and he said, "Hey, Brian came to visit." I said, "Hey, yay, Brian." So Brian pulled me out of the fire, and I made it this week. But real quick to go through some things that I kind of thought about or learned or somebody mentioned to me. Sandra over at Nana's Worms and Garden, she's always putting flowers in with somebody, when Jason and Colleen at Clive's Conundrum go and visit her, they'll maybe take some flowers to her. And she saves all her flowers and then she gives them to her worms. I just happen to have a carnation here that Rick brought in on Valentine's Day. Old florist, I don't need flowers. I still have scars from the last round of them. And but if you cut those up and pull them apart, you can put it in your compost. You throw it out in your yard and bury it, or you can give them to your worms. But Sandra asked me if I ever gave my worms any of my bougainvillea blossoms, and I said no, but boy, that's a really good idea. Now, this whole plate is very pretty, and these are a few days old. They're starting to get a little crunchy. This was only, I think it was one 1.2 ounces or something like that, so minor. And but it could go in my worm bin, and the worms would look pretty for a day until I had a coffee grounds on top. So that was just a thought. My other suggestion is always keep something in your freezer so that if you're going to put your scraps and stuff in there, it's just easy to toss in. They're not going to smell. They're going to freeze. Keep it to the very front. It's a great time to have eggs. If you're saving your eggs for your worms and you're going to pulverize them, that's wonderful. Worms will appreciate it. They have a gizzard, and it adds grit to them. The shrimp shells, if you pulverize them, sometimes I put them together. If you have old either bird seed, or if you've got sunflower seeds that you're thinking, oh, what am I going to do with these? I'll throw them on. Take them off the head. Go ahead and let them dry out, and then pulverize them. It is amazing that little seed, when it's pulverized, just burst. I mean, this is twice the size of this one. Is half the size. And if I take this and just fill it to here in bird seed, and put it through the pulverizer, the seed grinder, it will blow up to over this size. So it goes twice in size. If you have anything that's stale, we're pretty frugal. But if you have anything that's stale, like your oats or cornmeal or muffin mixes, or if you are a person who looks at your best used by things, usually that's earlier than it needs to be, but you can use that to feed your worms or to put in your compost if that's what you're doing. And coffee grounds, I've told you before that I use my filters at the bottom of the pots that I have. I also use it in my oblong worm bins, now known as Jack and Jill. They have a hole in it because it was a planter. So I take one of these and I put that down there so that soil doesn't come out. I've never ever seen a worm fall out. I mean, self-preservation, they're smart. Bedding for the worms, or if you're putting it in your compost pile. If you don't have it, sometimes I just have cardboard that almost seems too thick. I might put that at the bottom of my worm bin and see how it works, and it'll come apart. And then here was the star of the show, was Brian with his grass clippings. And the other thing that Sandra mentioned to me, we were talking about things like this is a live oak leaf, and much different than regular oak leaves that we all learned as kids how to draw. And they're thick and they're brittle, and they dry out brittle. And the magnolia leaves that are big and they're glossy and they're thick, and they would not really break down real well in probably in compost, maybe over a period of time. But Sandra said, hey, we have those too. We should each give our worms a magnolia leaf and see who won, whose worms win, which is kind of like playing the old game of my dad's stronger than your dad. My dad could beat up your dad. So Sandra, I think that's a great idea. So I think my worms could, could eat the magnolia leaf faster than your worms. One other thing that you probably never think about, I do. When we go out somewhere, Total Wines, go to the doctors, when you go in to wash your hands are nice and clean, and you take some paper towels to dry them. I dry my hands, and then I don't throw those paper towels away. I use those on the door. I'm much more conscious of it, but I also just, once I finish using them, I bring them home. and they act as carbon for my worm bin. If I told you anything else, one other thing. Sandra mentioned to me about baiting out my worms. If you go back and watch Jack from yesterday, and she said bait out your worms, and then you probably just use those castings out in your garden without even sifting them, which is a great idea. It's how I did it for the first 13 years. I didn't have a sifter, but these are, oops, let me just put this together the way it was. This is a container for strawberries, and they have little holes in them, probably too far down, but maybe not. And if I used, and I cut the top off of it, so I kind of have the same thing at the bottom here, and the only holes run across the sides here. And these are even smaller. And I was wondering what you guys think. If I just put straight food, no bedding, but just straight food in here, and something really luscious, you know, something delicious. And if you thought the worms, this would be a good bait trays, and then I could just, you know, maybe do one, and I don't know where I would keep the worms, to move them to the end maybe, or something like that. Tell me what you think. All right, moving right along. So, drum roll. Thank you, Brian. Boy, oh boy, he came through with just over 20 pounds. So that was a great help. But I did clean out a few other drawers, cupboards, what have you, and I got more. So my total for this week was 34 pounds, 10.8 ounces. Thank you, Brian. And so my total for 9 weeks, it is now 190 pounds, 3.8 ounces. I made it. So if you think this is a great, experiment and challenge, or if I'm just keeping myself busy, whatever way it works, I can only say that I hope that you're enjoying it. If you're bored, tell me. I can quit. But anyway, I wore this in your honor. This is my Mickey Mouse t-shirt. It's for those of you who have been having a lot of tornadoes and electrical storms and what have you. We're dry down here. So I thought I would wear one of my favorite Mickey's t-shirts to maybe bring on some rain. We need it badly. Again, our lakes are starting to go down. So I will leave you with that and say bye-bye, everybody, and I hope you'll subscribe and ring the bell. If you'd like, I do have playlists that you can watch, or if you'd like to just help me out with my watchtowers, you can go on there and set it up, and I would truly appreciate that. Take care, everybody, and see you next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye. And don't forget, garden what you've got.